Welcome back. 40 years ago today, Americans watched as the space shuttle Challenger lifted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Just over a minute later, though, it exploded, killing all 7 astronauts on board. For the general public, January 28, 1986 can be summed up with just one question. Where were you when the Challenger exploded? We talked with some of our station's journalists who say that day will never go away.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
To understand the shocking deaths of the Challenger crew, you need to go back to the days without cell phones or social media, when events played out on television.
There had been so much hype leading up to the Challenger and all the people, including that teacher who was so like a hero, if you will, going into space.
Folks watched as Krista McAuliffe was chosen to be the first teacher in space. Her enthusiasm was infectious.
Make that connection with the students that they too are part of history.
Krista McAuliffe, I mean, that was the whole reason everybody was paying attention to this mission, and no offense to the other astronauts, but it was such a big deal, and the shuttle program had become so common and so accepted and so routine, which it really never was.
John Becker, John North, and Robin Wilhoit hadn't even started their journalism careers yet, but all were very interested in this news of the day.
I was in junior high school, and I remember getting ready to go into the school, ready to see something extraordinary, especially because Krista McAuliffe was such an inspiration to so many teachers in my building.
On that day, I was an unemployed wannabe journalist. I just graduated from J School, and I was living with a friend. They had taken me in while I was living in Kansas City, hoping to get hired.
I was a high school senior living in North Carolina. I worked at a department store. That was my little after-school job. They were doing inventory, and they asked anyone who can come in and do inventory on this day, do it. So I got the go-ahead from my mom and dad, my teachers.
Like the rest of the nation, the 3 remember the explosion.
Space Control said, Roger, Challenger, go with throttle up. And then Challenger responded. And then just a few seconds later, there was that, and that was the explosion.
You know, we're not schooled in what it's supposed to look like, but in short order, you realized something was wrong. And then listening to the commentators and the reporters covering it, you knew very quickly this was not ending well.
Obviously a major malfunction.
The shock and confusion was instant. The mourning that followed was palpable as the nation turned to President Ronald Reagan that same evening.
I vividly recall President Reagan and his address to the nation, and it was so comforting, even at that age, in junior high, hearing the president say, they slipped the surly
bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
I'll never forget that.
40 years later, this team has followed stories from the national to local levels, but on that date, they were a part of a nation grieving the loss of 7 brilliant and brave individuals.
How can you not feel this loss of innocence, this devastation on such a national, even global scope?
That was an extraordinary reminder that you cannot take any space mission whatsoever for granted, ever.
It was just such a seminal moment in my young life. It just shook me. And it's emotional, and just, I'm still awe-inspired by the whole thing.
Now, NASA later revealed a rubber seal on a rocket booster was the cause of the explosion, and an investigation showed they knew of the danger and decided to go ahead with the launch anyway. As far as the space shuttle program, it ended in July of 2011. NASA is set to launch a crew aboard Artemis 2 heading to the moon. They're hoping to take flight next month.